Hello Internet, I am Daniel from Cinema Brawls, this is Matt, and that is Jake, and today we are going to be talking about the best horror movies. Alright guys, so today, like I said before, we're going to do a stacked brawl, like we did last week with the worst horror movies, but today we're going to be talking about what we believe is to be the best horror movies.
It's true. We have yet another triple brawl, y'all.
And just like last time, we will try to convince our other two people at this table why the movie we picked is the best, and you will end up voting at the end, and you can't vote for your own.
Yep, and purely out of revenge, I'm not going to vote for Daniel's either, no matter what it is. Well, I'm going to start off with my favorite horror movie, excluding Cabin in the Woods, because we already talked about it, and it's kind of comedy-ish anyway. Going straight horror here. Is Sinister, a 2012 movie starring Ethan Hawke, so you do know the movie, and directed by Scott Derrickson. Pretty great movie, if I'm being honest. I saw it in theaters. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the premise. I enjoyed the movie monster, and I liked the characters all around. And I had an ending that really felt good. I liked the way it ended. It left me with that dark feeling that I was looking for.
Yeah.
Minus the last 3 or 4 seconds, but no hard feelings towards it.
No, I have very hard feelings. No, I'm kidding.
The movie I picked is Insidious. It's a 2010 movie directed by James Wan, stars Patrick Wilson, Rose Byrne, Ty Simpkins, and Lynn Shay. And it is great. It was the first horror movie I saw, and I really liked it. I thought it was genuinely scary. I thought the premise was very interesting. You know, what if the house isn't haunted, it's the kid? And I just think the scares were very creative. I think it was a very just unique take on what it could have been.
I have seen Insidious 17 times and counting.
Good heavens, dude.
Please tell me you're exaggerating.
No, actually, I have been keeping track. My favorite horror movie, and what, in my opinion, the best horror movie of all time, is Evil Dead. It is a 2013 movie directed by...
We're going for the remake here?
Yeah, the remake. It's my favorite straight-up horror movie. The original and the sequels to the original, I feel, are more, especially at this point, horror comedy. Sam Raimi is a gifted comedic director and comedic horror director, and he's one of my favorite directing icons. I love everything he does. But in terms of straight horror movies, I believe that the sequel is better. And it's directed by Fede Alvarez and stars Jane Levy and Shiloh Fernandez, and is the story of people that go to a cabin in the woods, but played so straight that it scares me to death every single time I watch it.
With that all being said, let's brawl.
Try not to hit you in the face this time, bud.
Thank you. Ready? Brawl.
My turn.
You suck. Start with the story. Go ahead, Jake.
I started on the introduction. How about you go ahead?
Go ahead,
Matt.
Okay, I'll go ahead.
Go, Matt.
So, the story to Insidious is there is a family, nice family, husbanded by Patrick Wilson, who I would say is my male crush.
Patrick Wilson.
He's a strong man who will take care of you no matter what ghosts fly through the window.
Yeah, but he's no Paul Rudd, okay?
So the story is this family just moved into a new home. The little kid, who I did not realize was played by Ty Simpkins until today.
Who's Ty Simpkins?
So the story is this family moves into a new home. They're unpacking. One of the kids, Ty Simpkins, discovers an attic. He goes up there and it's creepy, but nothing outright wrong with it, you know. He falls off the ladder. going up to the attic and hits his head and goes into a coma. So he's at home, like on bed rest, in a coma, and weird things start happening, and it's like haunted ghost things, and they decide they're gonna move. Psych, ghost things keep happening at the new house, and they hire a psychic who tells them the house isn't haunted, the kid is haunted. He has some kind of gift that allows him to slip into this shadow realm or whatever, and ghosts want his soul. And that's it.
Much like Matt's movie, my movie starts off pretty similar, where a guy goes into an attic. Ethan Hawke discovers this box of Super 8 tapes, and he's a writer, and so he starts investigating them, and all of them contain videos of entire families being slaughtered, just in the most gruesome way possible. And eventually, it comes to find out that there's this demon god living in these tapes and collecting children who he then possesses to kill their families. At which point, spoiler alert, they all get killed by their daughter. Which is, to me, such an interesting premise. Because sure, you got like all these movies with demons and stuff, but this one was like a demon god that we don't know a ton about. And not only that, he looks good.
He does look creepy.
And he's a creepy mother freaker, and he's introduced in a creepy freaking way.
He's got nothing on the lipstick face demon.
Actual credited name of the demon in Insidious.
Yeah, mine's got a cool demon name that I don't remember right now. Anyway, the point is, the story was a little bit more original, and although I don't feel like the story was the strong part of the movie, I feel like every other category we're going to talk about was. It was still a really awesome story that it kept you interested the whole time.
I think the story for Insidious is one of the most creative ones. I had never said that before, so I had to throw it in now. Go ahead, Daniel.
Evil Dead. So, The Evil Dead, as directed by Sam Raimi, was the original Cabin in the Woods movie. It's the one that started the Cabin in the Woods genre. Not a slasher in the woods, like the subgenre. Not the slasher like Friday the 13th, but like the demonic goings on at the cabin in the woods. The 2013 remake is about 5 20-something-year-olds that go to a cabin in the woods, and to help the main guy's sister quit drugs, quit cold turkey and detox. They find in the basement, different, of the cabin, the Book of the Dead.
The basement is very different from an attic.
One's up, one's down.
Both dusty.
Both dusty. They find the Book of the Dead, and one of the characters summons the Deadites, who come and start possessing and/or killing all of the members in the cabin. And it's great. The story itself, while maybe cliched now, was at the time of the original pretty new and interesting. But the point of the remake is to make the movie that the original wanted to be. A very serious, very gruesome, gory horror movie. And Sam Raimi even commented, he is an executive producer on the remake, and he even commented that if he had the funds and the ability for special effects and stuff in the 80s when he made the original Evil Dead, he would have made this kind of movie. This hardcore, unflinchingly gory movie. And it's groovy.
All right, let's put it to a vote. Can't vote for your own. Who's voting for Sinister? Cool. It's unanimous. move on to characters.
Daniel, why don't you start us off?
So the 520 something.
Wait, I don't like hearing your voice that much back to back. No, go ahead.
Wow. Feel personally attacked.
That's my job. No, go ahead. Characters, Daniel, please.
So the 520 somethings are nameless to me. The Deadites are nameless, except for Deadites. Deadites are cool. Like, just that aspect of the characters being possessed, or even just different parts of their body being possessed and attacking them, is kind of cool. Sorry, it's not characters. I don't know any of the characters' names. But I do know how every single character who died. And
You know,
it's
a real great
awesome.
case for characters.
I know.
Guy.
So the one character that beat the other character to death with the top of the toilet bowl, the toilet cistern, that guy was cool because he also got a nail gun nails through his hand and arm, fully on screen, which was cool. The girl who gets her arm possessed, kind of like Ash does in Evil Dead 2. And then uses the electric turkey knife to like cut off her arm. That was cool. The lady who gets possessed like at the beginning and like cuts her own face with the porcelain. That she's okay, I guess. The girl who's the drug addict. Like all this stuff is like she's the first one to be possessed, and a lot of people. And like part of the problem is it gets so bad because they think that she's just going through withdrawal and being weird, not that she's possessed by Deadites. I know none of their names. Oh, but she gets a chainsaw for a hand, like in Ash, like in the Evil Dead movie, she becomes Ash, even though she was the first one to be possessed, and like all this cool stuff happens. It's very subversive. I like it. I don't know any of the characters' names. I'm going to say that again. I don't know any of the characters' names.
Okay, I see you have a strong argument there, but do you know any of the characters' names?
Absolutely not.
Do you even know?
All right, go ahead, Matt.
I would like to reiterate Patrick Wilson. I don't have a problem, you do. I like the characters because they make all the smart decisions. When you get a classic cliche horror movie, the house is haunted, they never leave. And I feel like a lot of horror movies lately are playing on the fact like, well, they can't. Whether it be a secret government organization making it so they can't, whether it be the ghost is making it so they can't, or in the case of Insidious, they do, but it doesn't stop bad things from happening. And I think that's an important lesson is you can't run away. But I think the characters make really smart decisions. They go seek help. They do everything that logically you would do in the movie, but it takes someone like Lorraine. Is that her name?
Yeah.
Elise. It takes someone like Elise, the psychic.
Lorraine. Which one's Lorraine?
Lorraine is Patrick Wilson's wife in The Conjuring.
Oh, dang.
It takes a psychic, someone like Elise, to come in and say, look, the logical answers won't work. You have to believe in the supernatural. You have to go to the Shadow Realm and rescue your own kid.
The Further.
The Further, that's what it was. You have to go there and rescue your own kid. And you realize there's all this backstory about Patrick Wilson's character. When you think it's just about the kid, suddenly you get this healthy dose of him, and it's great. And they explore a lot of that in the second one, and it's great.
In this movie, it is focused on family. And in this movie, you watch a lot of families die, which initially is supposed to prepare you for the end when the whole family gets killed by their daughter. That's a pretty big thing that happens, and it's what makes the ending and the movie so great. And so the whole thing is focusing on this family. They're uprooted from their home and have to move to this new home. They have people in the town that don't particularly like them, like they're people against them. They're going through their own problems, like their son was possessed for a second, and their daughter's acting weird and the parents are arguing and really struggling. And the whole time, the whole movie, you see these characters interact together, and you start to see that they're a family, and even though they have all these issues, they care about each other, and they've got problems they're trying to work through, and that makes you care about them. And then they get killed brutally, which is just a sucker punch. And it wouldn't have been effective if you didn't care about the family. And
True.
so
Absolutely.
that movie does a good job of making those characters come to life and be important.
And I really, if I could speak for the merits of the characters in Sinister, is I really liked how Ethan Hawke's character had at first he had the motivation that he was just looking for the story, and it wasn't about selling out or trying to get good books, trying to sell the books or anything like that. He was trying to find the heart of the story. And then as his character unfolded, you realize that he was just more desperate. He moved into the murder house. He was desperate, and he was willing to put his family in an uncomfortable position just to reclaim his former glory, if that makes sense. And his obsession with the tapes grew in conjunction with our own. As the audience, we grew closer to more interested in it, and it absorbed us the same that it did with Ethan Hawke's character. And I really liked that aspect of Sinister.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah, for sure.
It's kind of weird because watching it, I kind of didn't like any of the characters, but I was still very affected when they died.
Yeah.
So
because they were that realistic characters. They had their flaws, but they also had their merits.
Let's put it to a vote. Who's voting for Evil Dead? Who's voting for Insidious? And who's voting for Sinister? Let's move on to rewatchability.
You haven't started yet.
I haven't started yet. I think the fact that Daniel has seen it upwards of 17 times is enough.
Ludicrous.
If for nothing else, to see that it has a few filmmaking errors, like the position of doors being open in one scene and then it cuts and they're closed, or lights being on or off, or Patrick Wilson bending over and there's a
horrendous day for night.
or the Patrick Wilson bending over and there's his microphone box sticking out of his shirt, visible for all the world to see. I think Insidious is insanely rewatchable because it's fun to poke at those little things. But there's a lot, the way James Wan makes movies, and you see it a lot in The Conjuring as well, is there's the ghost or demon or whatever jumping out and doing the main scare, but throughout the whole movie leading up to that, there are so many little things that play into it. I'll be honest, that ghost that appears behind the baby's crib
That guy?
night, I did not see him the first time. I just thought that there were random noises everywhere and they were trying to get to the baby. I didn't see the ghost the first time. Rewatching it, I see, oh shoot, there's a ghost behind there. And there's just all kinds of little things like shadows moving and...
Dude, that scene where the ghost is walking outside and you can see him walking back and forth, and then he's inside the house.
Right?
I've seen it 17 times and it's that part still gets me.
Yeah, and there's just so many interesting things to look at besides what's being shown in the foreground. And I think that's great, especially when he goes to the further. It's dark, but there's so much going on.
Yeah. Which, really quick, the further, awful name for it.
Yeah, kind of.
Please. That was a placeholder while they came up with something different and then just forgot to change it. And it's still there 4 movies later.
Matt, you make some points.
I do make points.
I think Sinister is very rewatchable, especially as a horror movie, because if you want to watch a horror movie, you want to feel dread, you want to feel disgust, you want to feel overall those kind of emotions. Mm-hmm. And Sinister just does such a good job at relaying those emotions the whole time. If it doesn't have a feeling of being ominous, or then it has a feeling of pure dread, just watching those people die. If it doesn't have that feeling, even in those same videos, you get the feeling of just being straight creeped out because you have a demon walking around at the bottom of your pool or hiding in your bushes, just barely visible. Super creepy.
See, that plays more into emotional impact, but I would argue Sinister has a lot of the same rewatchable features as Insidious because the ghost is there the whole time. Yeah. And you gotta look for him.
Yeah,
Scott Derrickson's good at that too.
And it's got a good story. It's got an interesting story with characters that you're gonna like. So
That you care to rewatch and get invested in.
And I'm gonna say it, I know a lot of people didn't. I liked the sequel. I thought it was fine. The reason why I love this movie so much is, one, that opening scene. I know I've said it before and we've put it on movie lists and stuff. That opening scene is a masterclass at setting the mood for what you want this movie to be. This movie does not push high, like, this is not an existential movie. This is not dreading the paranormal in terms of like ghosts or like vague paranormal threats. This is demons will come and shoot you with nail guns. Scary. And I love that aspect of it. It is so, like the deaths. You come here and you watch this movie for the crazy gore that happens. That final scene. So, in just random fact here, the original Evil Dead used 50 gallons of fake blood. The final climax of the movie alone uses 500 gallons of fake blood, where blood is literally falling from the sky. It is glorious to behold that from the opening scene to the end credits, to after the end credits when you see Bruce Campbell, it is incredible. And it is amazing to watch. And every time I go through it, it doesn't wear off. I still cringe. I'm still like, oh my gosh, the entire time. And it's amazing.
all right. So who thought Sinister has the most rewatchability? Who thought Insidious had the most rewatchability? And who thought Evil Dead had the most rewatchability? Well, that's a three-way tie. That category is out the window.
Let's move on to merits in genre. Jake, go ahead and start.
Merits in genre. Well, Sinister is a good, well-known movie, and it spawned a sequel. That's really all I got. Let's face it, Insidious is the horror movie of our generation.
I feel like Sinister spawned from Insidious. But not to discredit Sinister.
What year did your movie come out?
2010.
Oof. Yeah,
Not to discredit Sinister, though, because when it did originally come in theaters, I heard people, like friends at school and stuff, say, this is the scariest movie I've seen.
I laughed.
I watched it. It wasn't the scariest I've seen, but it was still freaking good.
Yeah.
To that end, though, I do believe Insidious was, if not the forerunner, one of the forerunner horror movies that, like I said, spawned the characters are making smart decisions. They're trying to leave the house. They're trying to call the cops. They're trying to, not split up into individuals, And I think Insidious was the first to do that, and it had such a creative premise. Like I said, stop doing the logical choices because that's not how you solve this problem. And I feel like a lot of movies have tried to feature that in their own films.
I think they definitely push the boundaries of what mainstream horror could be. Because movies like Sinister and Evil Dead really are the niche horror movies. Like, not everyone's going to go out and be like, oh yeah, no, I saw Sinister. It was great. Or, dude, I loved The Evil Dead. But every single person has seen Insidious.
It's true.
It's true.
And that's something to be said. I think
That PG-13 rating does help.
It does.
Daniel, you voting for Insidious?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I said a lot of stuff about my movie earlier that dealt with emotion.
That's true.
Again,
I will say, you're right. Constant dread.
Yeah,
Constant
Just
ominousness.
oppressive
yeah,
atmosphere.
it keeps you in that the whole time, and I think that is amazing because it wasn't. While it did have a couple jump scares, which is fine. A lot of the dread that you're feeling isn't coming from that. It's coming from everything else.
See, Insidious has the classic horror movie thing where it's the build up, the tension. Oh, something is happening, something's in the background, and then the thing jumps out and the tension is relieved. In Sinister, the entire movie is tension. The entire movie is build up, and it doesn't get resolved.
Yeah, 20 minutes into the movie, you're watching families get murdered by lawnmowers.
Oh my gosh!
The
And
opening
it's the most
scene is that.
and it's the most terrifying. That made it pretty high onto our list of top 10 scary movie moments because it did it well.
Yeah.
Sinister. Now, let me talk a little bit about Insidious and the emotional impact. I feel like it has a fair amount of dread too, especially at the end when the hero of it all, after saving his son, unfortunately falls to this ghost that apparently has been plaguing him since he was a kid, and it's just really sad, really creepy. And this kid has been stuck in this. I'm going to keep calling it the Shadow Realm
Because
it's a lot cooler
for it.
for months, and it's just, I don't know. It's a very family-centered movie, and it makes you feel good, but it also makes you feel a little uncomfortable. And I'd just like to mention that Insidious had a moment that topped that top 10 scary movie list. May I remind you?
You're right. That was one of the scariest things. That was an unranked list, by the way.
So
Now,
when I mentioned last, and it was fine.
so Evil Dead, the emotional impact. The thing with the Evil Dead is that you go into it knowing all of these people are going to die. And one thing that I liked about it is that it subverted expectation. It's a movie called Evil Dead, directly based on another movie called The Evil Dead, that stars quite possibly one of the most iconic people in cinema history, Bruce Campbell as Ash. They made this movie without a character named Ash in it.
Can I stop you real quick?
Yeah.
Bruce Campbell is the most iconic person in cinema history.
One of them, Ash.
Bruce Campbell
Yeah, absolutely.
is the most...
One of them, yeah. Absolutely.
Yes and no. He is widely recognizable,
Sure.
but
That's why he's in so much else.
you're right.
Like,
Please continue with your
a
statements.
lot of, like, if you go up to, a lot of cinema people know who Bruce Campbell is because they've seen The Evil Dead. But, anyway, they made it without a character named Ash, and so you're kind of still curious, okay, who's going to fill the Ash role? And they subvert expectations that way. But the real emotion from this movie is so different. You have oppressive atmosphere, you have dread and horror and fear for your family, and then with the Evil Dead, it's not the Evil Dead, I have to clarify. With Evil Dead, you have horrific catharsis. You know that these characters are going to die, and you're there for how they die.
It's only a
And
matter
the
of how and
movie
when.
With
delivers.
that, who thinks that merits and genre should go to the Evil Dead?
Emotional impact.
Who thinks that emotional impact should go to the Evil Dead? Who thinks it should go to Insidious? And who thinks it should go to Sinister? Well, that settles it, ladies and gentlemen. Sinister is our winner at a 3-1 to... You were part of a tie in one of the categories.
I count that as a win.
You should.
Good job.
Great job,
Good job.
Sinister. You are
Our
great.
favorite horror
Pretty great.
movie.
Pretty
Yeah.
freaking great.
Absolutely.
But let it be known that these other horror movies are also great. And there are many a horror movie that are also great for your viewing pleasure. Comment below your favorite horror movie, or tell us why our choice was wrong. I tried to do that as word for word as possible from the last episode. How'd I do?
You did great.
Thank you.
First of all, I said it from the last episode, so no, you didn't even come close.
But he tried.
Yeah.
That's what's important.
Well, guys,
Bye.